to the August 2nd, 2022 City of Oshkosh Plan Commission meeting. We're glad you can join us. I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over before we begin. Please turn off or silence all your personal communication devices. When there is an agenda item that includes a public hearing or an opportunity for the public to speak, please understand that the applicant will be allowed to speak first. After the applicant finishes, the public will be asked to speak. When called upon to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the public record. You will have one opportunity per agenda item to speak unless a Plan Commission member requires clarification or wishes to ask you a question. After the public finishes speaking, the applicant will be asked if they have a final statement for the Plan Commission, and then the Plan Commission will take action on that agenda item. We appreciate you understanding. And now on to the agenda. First item is roll call.
Ms. Prop,
Here.
Ms. Shireman, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Coulibaly,
Here.
Ms. Davy,
Here.
Councilmember Ford,
Here.
Mr. Kiefer, Vice Chair Mitchell,
Here.
Chairman Perry,
Here.
6 present.
Wonderful. Next item on the agenda, approval of July 19th, 2022 minutes. Commission, what is your pleasure?
Move to accept them as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay, having seen none, we'll have a voice call. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes pass. Item number 1, specific implementation plan for commercial development at 580 South Keeler Street. GC Oshkosh Holdings LLC is the owner. Harry C. Clover is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections of that property by Plan Commission? Mr. Mitchell? Okay. All right, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site is located on the east side of South Kohler Street. It is the former Golden Corral site. It is zoned suburban mixed-use district with a planned development overlay. Surrounding land uses consist of commercial uses to the north and the south, and residential and institutional uses to the east, with Highway 41 to the west. Here's a view of the site. In January of this year, a general development plan was approved for 2 drive-through restaurants on the site. The applicant is now requesting SIP approval for the Panda Express on the northern half of the site, which will serve as phase 1 for the development. Phase 2 will be for the second drive-through restaurant to the south of Panda Express, which will be a SIP at a future date. So the site will utilize an existing shared access from South Kohler Street. They are meeting setback and impervious surface requirements with the exception of the north side setback, where they're requesting a 6.37 foot setback, where code requires a 10-foot setback, but staff does not have concerns with that reduction as it's abutting a shared driveway. They're also requesting a BSM for increased parking to 40 stalls, where code allows a maximum of 25 stalls. This was discussed at a Plan Commission workshop back in February, with Plan Commission supporting the reduction from the originally proposed 50 stalls down to the currently proposed 40 stalls. So staff is supportive of that increase to 40 stalls to accommodate customer and employee parking. Here are signage plans. So they are proposing to modify the existing pylon sign on the site to include a shared sign cabinet with the future drive-through restaurant to the south. It'll be 35 feet tall, which is the maximum for the SMU district along Highway 41, and it will be meeting dimensional requirements. They're also proposing wall signage on the west, north, and south elevations, and the wall signage is meeting code requirements for sign area. Here's the landscape plan. They are meeting building foundation requirements. They are meeting paved area plan requirements. However, they will need to provide curbing around lands or parking row ends to the west of the building here, and also provide the required landscaping within those islands. They're requesting a BSM to allow the parking row end at the southeast corner of the building to not have an overstory tree. Staff is supportive of that BSM as they have little space between the dumpster enclosure and the building to support healthy tree growth. They are meeting street frontage landscaping requirements. and also exceeding yard landscaping requirements to offset the increased parking and the side setback reduction. There is a buffer yard requirement along the east property line as it's abutting multifamily residential zoning. They are providing 6-foot solid wood fencing along the property line to meet that buffer yard requirement. Here's,
Go ahead and
it
continue
is,
your
it is
report.
6-foot tall fencing. Here's the lighting plan. It is meeting the 0.4-foot candle lighting requirement for all parking and circulation areas. Also not exceeding 0.5-foot candles with the exception of along the north property line where it's 1.9-foot candles. So they are requesting a BSM for that, and staff does not have concerns with that BSM as it's just along the shared driveway. Here's the building facade. So this is the west building facade. So exterior materials consist of glazing, masonry, ephes, composite wood, and decorative metal. So the north and south, here's a south building facade. The north and south side facades are exceeding the 50% Class 1 requirement. They're requesting a BSM for reduced Class 1 materials on the west highway-facing elevation to 45%. So we'll need a BSM for that reduction. Staff is supportive of the reduction as they're exceeding the 50% in the north and south elevations, with the total of those front and side elevations being over 50% to offset that reduction on the west facade. And this is the east-facing elevation, which is not required to meet the 50% Class 1 requirement as it's a rear facade. And with that, staff recommends approval of the SIP request with the findings and conditions in your staff report.
All right, thank you for your report. Plan Commission, do you have any technical questions for staff? Councilmember Ford.
So that fence is 6 feet tall. What materials is it? Will it
6-foot
be?
wood fencing.
Wood fencing.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
I think you addressed it, but the whole idea of us reducing the parking was to, I guess, reduce the expanding pavement areas. And so the way that it looks here, those two left side sections, one above and one below the landscaped island, they look like they're essentially just paved areas that could be driven over. You're saying they would be curbed and then landscaped.
Yes, these would need to be curbed and landscapes because they're parking row ends.
Yeah.
So it'll actually reduce that number that I think right now it's like 65% impervious. That would come down even a little further when those are updated.
Sure. When we require, just side question, when we require curbing, do we allow for like a more creative, I don't know, a rain swale or whatever they're called, where it actually serves as a natural water filtration so that they don't have to have a constant, 4-inch curb all the way around or whatever the height is?
So we do allow like bioswales and rain gardens to be incorporated into the islands. It's really a design choice of when they're doing their stormwater management, if it makes sense. But yeah, they are a viable option.
Great, thank you.
Any other question? Councilmember Ford.
One more question. And can you confirm the west facade is below the 50% threshold for Class 1 materials, but the entire building is well above, correct, the threshold?
The side, this north and south elevations, I know those are over the 50% requirement because just the front and sides have to meet that requirement. So those three facades are meeting it.
Yeah. So page 7 of the staff report. West is 45%. South is 54%. North is 65.5. So kind of if you aggregate them, it's over 50% on those three. And then we do actually have 34% on the east, which 0% of the east is required. So overall, the building concedes it by a significant amount.
Thank you.
Any other technical questions? I have one. I noticed on the plan that there were double long parking spots that were shown in the front. Or it appears that there's double long parking spots in the front. Is that planned or purposeful or not?
I don't think they're double long. They're just a little bit bigger than normal based on just the physical geography dimensions of that area. I do not believe they're 40 feet, but we can double check. 40 feet would constitute a double lane.
Okay. As somebody who frequently uses those types of things, it's something that I look forward to when you come to a place, and it sometimes makes the decision on whether I use it or not. So, all right. Any other questions, Plan Commission? All right, seeing none, I'm going to have a public comment period on this item, so we're going to open the public comment period and request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here? If you can approach the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Henry Clover, and to correct the monitor, my name screws everybody up because it's spelled with a K, not a C. But I'm Henry Clover, AC Clover Architect, the architect of record for this project, as well as Panda Express. Happy to be here. Address is 8813 Penrose Lane, Lenexa, Kansas. Very happy to be here. Brian and the staff have been excellent to work with, so I'm very pleased. The presentation is spectacular compared to most communities that I go to, so I want to thank you very much. I'm here to answer any questions you may have. And yes, the lanes are 36 feet, the parking stalls in front. And that's purposeful, to, based on the location and near the highway and people coming off with big vehicles and dually pickup trucks and trailers and RVs. So they purposely did that. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have. So.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to request if there's any additional public comment. Is there anybody else out there who'd like to comment on this particular item? Approach the podium and state your name and address for us, please.
My name is Susan Denning, and I live at 1777 West Fifth Avenue. So my condo would be directly behind their drive-through. Some of the problems that we've encountered from the parking lot at Golden Corral is the excessive snow that's plowed up to our fence, and then in the spring when it melts, we get swamps in our backyards. So I'm hoping that is addressed by some kind of drainage that they're working into this proposal. Also, I was concerned about the garbage dumpster and where it's located, but it looks like on your maps now that's been moved. It's not by the drive-through in the back anymore, it's up by the building. Is that correct?
Yes, that appears to be so.
And then the only other question I have is, what direction are the speakers for that drive-through going to project the sound? Is it towards us or away from us?
Straight up.
Okay. And is there a certain decibels that they allow speakers like that to be?
I can answer some of that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with our noise ordinance to see if there is a specific level for speakers, but we can check that as well.
All right, those were my concerns. I'm not opposed to this in any way. I just want to be informed so I know what to expect. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other thank you. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak on this item at this time? Any other member of the public that wishes to speak on this item? Okay, having seen none, I am going to close the public comment period, but I will ask for a closing statement from the applicant. So if you'd like to reapproach the podium.
I will attempt, and if I miss anything, please let me know if I miss anything. I've had to go through this several times because I've been doing pandas for a very, very long time. And they are actually very conscientious providers because they actually use a sound attenuation speaker, so that if the noise is really loud, it's louder. If it's really low, it's lower. The biggest thing people don't understand is that sound is not cumulative. So the highway noise will dwarf any sound coming out of a speaker from the drive-through. We've actually had to do physical tests on this, actually in Tennessee, I think, because we had residents, actual houses right behind us. A highway decibels are like 80 decibels, and sound isn't cumulative, so any sound coming out of it you would probably never be able to hear over the sound of the highway, but it's also a sound attenuation speaker. So if the noise from the highway quiets down, then that will quiet down as well. The speakers do face, basically to the north, toward the vehicles, and they're in close proximity to the vehicles, so I would doubt you'd ever hear them. Panda is an excellent company to work with. I mean, I've worked with them for a very long time. They're very cooperative. If there's any complaints, they would try and make you as happy as possible. The fence is gonna be 6 feet tall. The site lighting is new and will be better quality lighting than there's there today, which is a lot more controllable with LEDs than it is currently. Is there anything I missed?
No.
No?
That's
Um,
removal, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be, that's a little bit out of my realm, because I haven't had to deal with snow too much, except on parking decks, and how you deal with them there. But obviously, I do know that the concern you had to do with a swamp. There is a stipulation in the staff report about that they have to do the stormwater study with the site plan review and things like that, and so they'll have to control any runoff. And with a brand new site, you're gonna get a lot better control and systems than you have probably today that are existing today, so.
They did put some kind of stormwater thing in behind, like the FedEx and the Verizon that's over there, a few years ago.
So we will have the city staff address that with the applicant, because we've heard of those concerns, and so we appreciate you addressing that for us.
Yes, and we will add the islands too. I forgot to mention that previously. So,
Any other statement for us?
no, I'm fine as long as you don't have any questions for me.
I do believe that there is a question or two for you, so if you could hold on just a second. Plan Commission, do you have any questions of the applicant? Mr. Mitchell?
First to you, what's the width of the back side on, I guess that would be the east?
Their rear yard setback right now is 30.21 feet.
30 feet. So certainly there's enough room for, say, some arborvitae if we wanted. 6 feet is great, but if you're on a second floor and you have concern about, headlights or traffic or noise, having another 6 feet over that 6 feet, so 12 total, 18 total, if you want to add, a couple of years down the road of an arborvitae would be great. So my question then for you is that something that you would entertain? You've got 30 feet, no arborvitae is getting 30 feet wide. You could probably stick 6 of them for, less than $500 and make our friends maybe more happy and
Sure.
have a
We'd-
more appealing setting.
Yeah, we're happy to work with staff on landscaping, and I'll be honest with you, I think we did add to the project I was talking about with the residents, arborvitae's there. So, yes, we're happy to provide additional landscaping.
Okay, is there any other questions for the applicant from the Plan Commission? All right, having seen none, thank you. Plan Commission, this is up for your action right now.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on the motion? Mr. Mitchell?
So just regarding those, is that something you just want to leave? Are you guys square away if it's feasible, or you want to have it added
I
in?
would like you to add it as an 8th condition, just so that we have it as part of their PD approval. It's locked in. I think we understand the intent, but just by having it as part of the official approval, it gives us that backup if we need it.
Right. I don't know what the phrase is. I don't want to be the one who decides how many or anything like that, right?
Garbs are 33 points apiece, so if you had, what do we say, 5 or 6?
6.
So 150, 180 points.
150, 180 points would be equivalent to roughly 6 arbs.
Yep.
So I would just ask that you make a motion to add amendment number 8 to require 180 points of arborvitae landscaping along the east property line.
Make a motion to add amendment provision number A to add 180 points of landscaping to the, what side, east border property.
Second.
I didn't bring a pen.
Okay, so we have an amendment proposed with a second. Further discussion. Mr. Bowen?
Just as a note, we own an adjacent property to this one. We've had discussions with this property owner about easements and other business relationships, so I'll be voting present.
Okay. Any other commission discussion?
So we need a vote on the amendment
Vote on the
and a
amendment.
vote after.
So no discussion? All right, we need a vote on the amendment, and we'll call a roll call vote on that. So the amendment is to add 180 points of landscaping to the conditions of approval. All right, roll
I still
call.
call Ed even though he's voting present.
Well,
Okay,
you can, he's just gonna say present.
okay, I
Right.
just want to make sure. Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 6.
The amendment carried. So we have now a motion with the amendment that is on the floor to approve this agenda item. And so we need a roll call vote on the original motion with the amendment added. So roll call, please.
Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
All right,
Okay.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, it's a public hearing on a proposed creation of a tax increment financing district number 43, Mill on Main, designation of boundaries and approval of project plan. The redevelopment authority of Oshkosh, City of Oshkosh, Fosh Valley and Western LTD, Wisconsin Public Service, Bergstrom Corporation are the owner, Mill on Main LLC is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections on this particular agenda item from the Plan Commission? Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Bowen, Ms. Prop, Ms. Davy. All right, we have them all down. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Staff, please present your summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, likely the last time you see this project for a while, but today we've got TID 43, or the Mill on Main TID. It is a 13.45 acre blighted area TID, generally located along the east side of South Main Street and south of the Fox River. As you know, it's an approximately 291 unit apartment development along with a little under 22,000 square feet of commercial space. Kind of talking a little bit about the TID project expenditures. Just another map kind of showing you where it is, but I think most of you are familiar with the TID area. The TID area is slightly larger than the development area from the Mill on Main specifically to their development. But we're looking at about $28.9 million in projected project costs for the development, including an approximate $20.07 million as pay-as-you-go incentives, about $210,000 administrative expenses, $250,000 on some public utilities, approximately $500,000 to do some environmental remediation that needs to take place on site, about $500,000 for some trailhead parking. That's kind of located at the southeast corner of the site you see there. And approximately $2 million needed for South Main Street improvements, about $1.2 million for public docks that would be located along the river. And then lastly, the TID does allow for the city to recoup some of the costs that it has paid in acquiring and holding costs for acquiring the property that ultimately went for this development. There would be approximately $4.23 million remaining left in the life of the TID to contribute back to the approximately $4.5 million the city paid in acquiring and holding costs for the redevelopment area. It is expected that the TID would last its entire 27-year statutory life. Generally, that's to help include recoup some of those costs that the city had in acquiring this property. Applicant, or we expect an improvement value out of this project at a little under $48 million, would be the expected tax roll at the end of the development. And the applicant is looking at spending about $89 million to bring the development forward. So about an $89 million development cost should result in about a $48 million end value project. This plan is obviously consistent with a number of plans we have here as we look, with Plan Commission, with their land use role, looking at it. It's consistent with both the core and the, I lost my point, River North sub-areas identified in the Sawdust District Master Plan. It is consistent with the 2040 Comp Plan, which calls city center uses, and is obviously consistent with the Riverfront Mixed-Use Plan Development, which was approved by council earlier this year. It is a blighted district TID because it was largely industrial property that has been removed since then, so it does qualify as blight under state statute. And then lastly, the project did score 78 points on the city's blight and redevelopment scoring matrix for TIDs, which exceeds the 50-point minimum requirement needed for a TID to move forward. With that said, let's answer some questions.
All right, thank you for your report. Technical questions of the staff from the Plan Commission. Councilmember Ford.
So the 4+ million in reimbursement for the purchase of the property, that's the first time we're doing that, correct?
I don't know if that is the case or not. I don't want to speak out of turn. I am not sure. I guess Mr. Taves has worked on a lot of these for us. He may be able to probably.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, do you recall that being in any other?
Yeah, I don't specifically recall that we've done this
Okay.
before.
That's good.
Other questions, Commission? Mr. Mitchell.
So this is a part of residential development. Is it potentially conceivable that the city provides, considerable financial support through the creation of the TIF, and a large portion of the population maybe could not afford to live at any of those units? Is that conceivable?
Yeah, I think that's conceivable.
The state's TIF policy allows the city and the developer to establish terms in a development agreement.
Correct.
And this development may already be considering doing so, but one way to ensure access for individuals who are on lower income levels is that doesn't impact the financial performance of the development, is to simply accept housing choice vouchers, not to be required to set aside units or anything to that degree, but simply that if a qualified, if a applicant who otherwise meets all other eligibility criteria, except for they probably couldn't afford to live there, but they have a voucher that makes up that difference in rent, that they would, that the development would then consider them a viable applicant and would not turn them away simply because they have a voucher, which is a major thing, right? Have we put in place anything like that, or is there any
So I can't
language?
speak to the developer's agreement. I don't know where that process is, but you are right. It's something that would have to go in the developer's agreement. Doesn't actually go in the TID or the project plan, but it can be something council could definitely include in their developer's agreement.
And is there a way that we can recommend it further beyond what I just did, or what's the process for that? Typically, these are there's quite a bit of just rubber stamping. You present these, and we say, yeah, it looks good.
So the developer's agreement is a legal document between council and the developer. Plan Commission is not party to that. We could not condition the TID on them adding something in the developer's agreement. So I think really expressing your concern now, or your questions now, and your desire to have this looked at, so staff can hear the comment, and Councilmember Ford, as our representative of council, can hopefully take that thought and that idea forward as council has their closed sessions and starts to talk about the financial obligations they're going to consider.
Right. And again, just I'm not sure the knowledge across the board, but it doesn't require an apartment manager to accept less in rent. Simply that if the family can only pay $300 and rent is $800, the voucher pays the other $500. So financially speaking, it ends up not having a harmful impact on their pro forma. So on the flip side, a lot of landlords simply don't do it because they would prefer not to rent to low-income households. So we often talk about what are some avenues that the city could take action and implement strategies to help expand access to affordable housing. And what we've kind of honed in on is if we're providing our own financial incentives, then that's an avenue. So I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, maybe across the board. The bare minimum would be to expect that folks would accept vouchers.
Can you be more specific about the different types of vouchers that might be out there, just so I describe this correctly?
Yeah, what I'm referring to in this case, this is again the bare minimum, the easiest thing to do is simply if you have a housing choice voucher through the in our area, it would be through the Oshkosh or Winnebago County Housing Authority.
Okay.
So they've already been determined eligible for the program by the agency, and they've been issued a voucher. Wait lists are sometimes 2 to 5 years, right? So they've been waiting for an opportunity for quality, affordable housing for a long time. And then you end up having a triangular arrangement, so the landlord has an agreement with the tenant and with the agency, and vice versa, goes around. So the tenant pays their portion, and then the agency would pay the remaining. So, of
Thank you, that's helpful.
course.
All right, are there any other technical questions to the staff from the Plan Commission?
Just have one more.
Mr. Mitchell?
Does this include the add-on year for purposes of affordable housing?
Sorry, what?
No, you're all right. So a while ago, I don't know, a decade ago, I worked with Darren, and we put in place the provision where the city can add on an additional year for purposes of affordable housing funding, where you can capture an additional revenue.
So that is at TID closure. It's
Yep.
actually part of state statute now, where when a TID closes, the city can request that it remain open for one additional year. That increment is then captured and placed into our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. When you hear us talk about H&I Healthy Neighborhoods, that's that funding source that we use to do all of those housing programs through H&I. That is exactly that money. That's that TID extension. On that note, for a while now, and Todd maybe know more about this than I, there's been some discussion at the state level of actually making that 2 years or 3 years. 2 years, correct?
There was a bill a couple years ago.
But that
3
didn't actually
years.
make it anywhere?
Not.
Okay.
You answered my follow-up, so thank you. I was curious about the accountability, where that went to. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually got added into state law.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. And that's what created H&I. All those great programs we run at H&I are from that mechanism.
Yep.
All right, any other additional technical questions from the Plan Commission? Okay, having seen none, as this is a public hearing, I will open the public hearing. Is there any member from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Any member of the public that wishes to speak on this item? Okay, having seen none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I will ask for the commission to take some action.
We move to adopt the finding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion from the Plan Commission? Any discussion from the Plan Commission? Okay, having seen none, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Prop,
Aye.
Mr. Bowen,
Aye.
Mr. Coulibaly,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mitchell,
Aye.
Chairman Perry.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
All right, the next item on the agenda is adjournment, and since Mr. Kiefer isn't here, I need somebody to move that.
I move we adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
with motion and second, voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you for